Greetings all. It is February 11th, 2023. We are at the final stages of an era that is notable in many regards. Perhaps one of the most notable from my perspective is the mass delusion that has affected countries around the world. This has particularly been on display in the United States of America, but not exclusive to it. Between 2021 and 2024, the U.S. is going through a very rare Pluto return, so it has been challenged in ways that most countries are not. Nonetheless, the post-truth era, which has been a worldwide phenomenon, can be traced back to when Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008. Almost immediately, the great financial crisis occurred, triggered by the housing market collapse. Soon thereafter, the Tea Party movement rose to prominence in 2009, typically attributed to the resentment towards the election of the first Black American president. And as we later found out, the Tea Party movement was deliberately contrived by the Koch brothers and the tobacco industry as a means to get average people to become activists to reduce taxes on the wealthy. This is all well documented. So again, the Tea Party movement was fabricated deliberately by entrenched plutocratic interests for their own financial benefit. That is Pluto in Capricorn. As far as I'm concerned, the Tea Party movement simply morphed into the MAGA movement under a different brand with Trump as its figurehead. The 10th house, which Capricorn rules, is all about status, and many of the underlying motivations of the Tea Party and MAGA movements were grievances over perceived losses of status for those people. They raged and fixated on minority groups, women, other ethnic and religious groups, who they perceived as threatening their privileged position in the social hierarchical pecking order. All of this has been studied and documented extensively. This cycle of Pluto transiting Capricorn is drawing to a close. The first ingress of Pluto into Aquarius will occur on March 23rd, and due to retrogrades, Pluto will not fully settle into Aquarius until November 19th of 2024, where it will stay generally through 2044. Neptune entered Pisces in April of 2011 and will stay in Pisces until early 2026. One of the negative expressions of Neptune in Pisces is illusion and delusion, not being grounded or being detached from reality, and on a societal level provides fertile ground for disinformation, misinformation, propaganda, and mass delusion. What could be more delusional than ordinary people being unwitting activists for entrenched plutocratic and corporate interests? Yes, this actually happened, and it's still happening now. Given that Pluto will be moving into Aquarius shortly, and Neptune will be leaving Pisces commencing in 2025, I believe it is safe to speculate that we shall see the beginning of the end of the post-truth era of grievance, which has led to some very significant developments, including Brexit, which has decimated the economy and living standards of people in the United Kingdom. So I just wanted to put that out there briefly so that people can understand that this bizarre, if not freakish, era that we have been experiencing should be drawing to a close. Because I know many of you are concerned about reality, as am I, being a reality-oriented person who believes in facts and evidence. And we have very significant concerns about many issues that urgently require rational and evidence-based thought and action. If what I have been articulating here in recent episodes dealing with astrology is accurate, during this time we should start to see many of these kinds of matters come to a head one way or another. We simply cannot continue to spiral into madness as we have been. So either there will be cooperation and a more rational approach to dealing with reality, or there will be a permanent division, a parting of ways of some kind, which may be seeded during this period. It will certainly be interesting to observe. It's funny, an article I was reading this morning was talking about how much of the anti-abortion movement is actually psychologically motivated by grievances against women and not about abortion itself. And of course, most of those grievances are held by men who would prefer to have women be subservient to them. It fits very much into the theme of Pluto transiting Capricorn, which covers authority figures, hierarchical structures, and the patriarchy. The main point of all of this is that no, it is not rational. Rational in the sense that many liberals and progressives understand it. It's not about facts or data or information or what is real or what is true or what is not. It is about emotions, particularly grievance, anger, and resentment. And thus, it is almost pointless or futile to try and address this rationally because it's not rational. No amount of knowledge, data, or information is likely capable of altering someone's core emotional state. I personally believe that there are valid reasons for many people to feel aggrieved. However, where I differ is who and what is to blame for those conditions that resulted in those grievances. And I would never personally target weaker people than myself as a means of expressing my resentment. I think it's the inverse. We should be expressing our outrage to those who are in positions of privilege and power, rather than those we perceive as being weaker than us. In fact, we can go even further, and I think accurately state that many people have been deliberately undermined to benefit a small minority. Our current social and economic conditions are not happenstance, as I have argued here many times before. There are dark forces at play which would like people to vent their frustration on vulnerable groups and individuals as a means of distraction and diversion. Pluto's transit of Capricorn is attempting to make us understand this very clearly. There were many truly stunning astrological aspects and events that occurred during this period, too many to mention, but a few very notable ones which really stand out include the Uranus-Pluto squares, which occurred between 2012 and 2015. These are linked to the Pluto-Uranus conjunction that occurred in the 1960s that inspired the countercultural movement, where the seeds of that inspiration are being tested or challenged in the square. The Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which occurred in Capricorn and was exact on December 21st of 2020. The Great Conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, which occurred at the very first degree of Aquarius on December 21st of 2020. The USA-Pluto return, which has been in effect since February of 2021 and continues through the beginning of 2024. For nations, Pluto returns have been linked to the falls of empires, and there is no question that the United States has suffered many blows in recent years due to extreme polarization and division and political dysfunction. Again, there are too many to mention here because I want to keep this short. But those are some of the significant astrological transits that have occurred during this period. Not to mention a global pandemic that brought the world to its knees in many ways, and will undoubtedly be considered a very significant historical development. The rise of China as a global economic and military power, the illegal invasion and occupation of Ukraine by Russia, the election of the first black president in the United States history, which has resulted in dramatic levels of racial resentment and animosity, the collapse of global supply chains, the unprecedented proliferation of conspiracy theories and misinformation, as well as movements like QAnon. Who could forget that? I could go on and on. Finally, in many areas of life, we must reject the idea that bias is a bad thing. There are many things I am extremely biased against. Say, for example, unnecessary violence or harm, subjugation, oppression, unlawful imprisonment, slavery, and all manner of discrimination and injustice. I am very biased against those kinds of things, and it is illogical to assume or to claim or state that one is unbiased, when in fact one is not. Would you prefer to live in a gulag in Siberia or in a pleasant domain somewhere else? I think the answer is clear. Of course, I have already talked a lot about this in other episodes. If you want to focus just on the astrology, I have a playlist for astrology. If you're just interested in astrology, you can check that playlist. You'll find that on my YouTube channel. So there you go, a short little update and synopsis of this period of the era of grievance, which is at the beginning of the end. Take care, all the best, thanks for everything, and I'll talk to you again soon.